Imagine for a moment that you're in a room with 1,000 mirrors. Each thought that passes through your mind is reflected back at you, multiplied, intensified. You try to fight the negative thoughts, push away the anxiety, resist the fear, but with each attempt, the reflections only grow stronger, brighter, more overwhelming. This is your mind right now, isn't it? A hall of mirrors where every attempt to fight your thoughts creates an army of reflections fighting back. What if I told you that your greatest enemy isn't the world outside, but the war you're waging in your mind? That every time you push against a thought, resist an emotion, or try to force your mind into silence, you're actually strengthening the very thing you're trying to escape. Think about it. How much energy have you spent trying to control your thoughts? Fighting against anxiety, wrestling with fears, trying to force yourself to think positively? It's exhausting, isn't it? Like trying to hold back an ocean with your bare hands. And the more you fight, the stronger the waves become. But here's what they never told you. Reality isn't fixed. It's fluid, responsive, almost alive. And it bends not to your force, but to your surrender. This isn't some mystical secret. It's a truth that quantum physicists are just beginning to understand. A wisdom that ancient masters have been teaching for millennia. You see, right now, you're caught in an invisible trap. The harder you fight against your thoughts, the more power you give them. It's like trying to punch a shadow. Your fist passes right through, but the shadow remains, growing darker with each attempt. And this constant battle isn't just exhausting you, it's literally shaping your reality in ways you haven't even realized. Every spiritual tradition, from Buddhism to quantum physics, points to a stunning truth. The observer affects the observed. But what happens when the observer is at war with their own observations? What happens when you're constantly fighting against your own thoughts, your own experiences, your own reality? The stakes couldn't be higher. This internal war isn't just affecting your peace of mind, it's shaping everything. Your relationships, your success, your health, your entire experience of reality. The energy you spend fighting your thoughts is energy you can't invest in actually living your life. And the reality you experience is a direct reflection of this internal battlefield. But what if there was another way? What if the key to changing your reality isn't in fighting harder, but in laying down your weapons altogether? What if the very thing you've been resisting is actually the doorway to your freedom? This isn't just another spiritual theory or psychological technique. This is about fundamentally shifting how reality responds to you. Because once you stop fighting your thoughts, something extraordinary happens. Reality begins to bend. Not through force, not through control, but through the most counterintuitive action of all, complete surrender. Are you ready to discover what happens when you stop being at war with your own mind? Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just going to change how you think. It's going to change how reality itself responds to your presence. Let's explore this battlefield of the mind that you've been living in. Every day, from the moment you wake up, thoughts arise, some gentle, some overwhelming, some that feel like they could tear your world apart. And what's your first instinct? To fight, to resist, to push back against anything that threatens your peace. This isn't your fault. We've been conditioned to believe that strength means control, that victory means domination over our thoughts. Society tells us to think positive, to push away negative thoughts, to combat anxiety. But have you noticed something strange? The more you fight these thoughts, the stronger they become. It's as if they're feeding off your resistance. Think about the last time anxiety crept into your mind. Maybe it was before an important presentation, or during a sleepless night when worries about the future wouldn't let you rest. What happened when you tried to force those thoughts away? Did they dissolve or did they multiply? Did peace come through combat, or did the war in your mind only escalate? The truth is, your mind follows a profound universal law that mystics have understood for millennia. What you resist persists. Every time you fight a thought, you're actually giving it more power, more substance, more reality. It's like trying to cut through fog with a sword. Your very attempts to destroy it only stir it up more. Science is finally catching up to this ancient wisdom. Neuroscientists have discovered something remarkable. When you resist a thought, you activate the amygdala, your brain's fear center. This triggers a cascade of stress hormones, making the thought feel even more threatening, creating a vicious cycle of resistance and intensification. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Quantum physics has shown us that the act of observation affects the behavior of particles at the most fundamental level. Your consciousness, your attention, literally influences the fabric of reality. So what happens when that consciousness is in a state of constant warfare? What reality are you creating through this perpetual resistance? The cost of this internal war is far greater than you might realize. Every ounce of energy you spend fighting your thoughts is energy that could be used for creation, for growth, for actual living. It's like having a powerful car but using all its fuel to drive in circles, fighting against its own momentum instead of moving forward. Eastern traditions speak of a concept called the pain body, a field of energy that feeds on negative thoughts and emotions. But what they don't often tell you is that this pain body doesn't grow from the thoughts themselves, but from your resistance to them. Your fight against your thoughts is actually what gives them their power over your reality. Consider this. What if every thought that enters your mind is like a guest knocking at your door? When you fight these guests, you create a crowd outside your door, all demanding attention, all growing louder and more insistent with each moment of resistance. But what if there was another way to relate to these visitors of the mind? This is where we begin to touch the edge of something profound. A completely different way of being with your thoughts that doesn't involve combat, control, or resistance. A way that might seem counterintuitive at first, but holds the key to bending reality itself. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a raging river. Your thoughts are like the current, powerful, relentless, sometimes overwhelming. For years, you've been trying to stop the flow, building dams, throwing rocks, fighting against the very nature of water itself. How exhausted are you from this constant battle? What if I told you that the very thing you've been fighting against could become your greatest ally? Let's talk about surrender. And before your mind jumps to conclusions, understand that this isn't about giving up. This is about something far more powerful. This is about the art of letting go in a way that actually gives you more control than you've ever had before. Think about water for a moment. When you try to grasp it tightly in your fist, what happens? It slips through your fingers, doesn't it? But when you open your palm, it can rest there peacefully, reflecting the sky above. Your thoughts work in exactly the same way. The tighter you try to control them, the more they seem to escape you, creating ripples of resistance that distort your entire reality. The ancient Taoists understood this profound truth. They spoke of Wu Wei, the art of non-doing, of allowing things to be as they are. But here's what most people miss about this teaching. It's not passive resignation, it's active allowance. When you stop fighting your thoughts, you're not becoming their victim, you're becoming their witness. And in that witnessing, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your brain, this magnificent quantum computer, operates on principles we're only beginning to understand. When you fight a thought, you create what scientists call neural entrainment. Basically, you strengthen the very neural pathways you're trying to weaken. But when you surrender, when you simply allow thoughts to be there without resistance, these pathways begin to naturally reorganize themselves. This is where reality starts to bend, not through force, but through allowing. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how problems seem to solve themselves when you stop obsessing over them? How solutions appear precisely when you stop forcing them? This isn't coincidence. This is the mechanics of surrender at work. But I know what you're thinking. If I stop fighting my negative thoughts, won't they overwhelm me? Won't they take over? This is where most people get stuck. They confuse surrender with submission. The truth is, surrender is the ultimate form of power. When you truly surrender to the present moment, to your thoughts, to what is, you step into a state of such profound awareness that reality itself begins to respond differently to your presence. Consider the example of anxiety. When you fight it, what happens? Your heart races faster, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense. You literally create the very state you're trying to avoid. But when you surrender to the feeling, when you simply allow it to be there without resistance, something amazing happens. The anxiety begins to transform, not because you forced it to change, but because you finally gave it permission to move through you naturally. This is the paradox that quantum physics is finally helping us understand. The observer effect shows us that consciousness influences reality at its most fundamental level. But here's the key. This influence doesn't come through force. It comes through the quality of our observation. When you stop fighting your thoughts and simply become aware of them, you change the very field of possibilities around you. Now we're approaching something truly extraordinary. The moment when reality itself begins to bend. Not through force, not through mental gymnastics, but through the simple yet profound act of allowing your thoughts to exist without resistance. This is where quantum physics and ancient wisdom converge to reveal something remarkable about the nature of our reality. Think about how a prism bends light. The light doesn't fight its way through the crystal. It simply allows itself to be transformed, revealing colors that were always present but previously unseen. Your consciousness works in much the same way. When you stop fighting your thoughts, your awareness becomes like that prism, revealing aspects of reality that were always there, but hidden by your resistance. The quantum field responds to consciousness in ways that still baffle our greatest scientists. Every thought you have is literally interacting with this field, creating ripples in the fabric of reality. But here's the crucial understanding. It's not the thoughts themselves that create the strongest ripples. It's your relationship with those thoughts. When you're in a state of resistance, you're creating interference patterns, waves that clash and cancel each other out. But when you surrender, when you allow, these waves begin to synchronize, creating what scientists call coherence. Let me share something profound that happened in the quantum physics lab at Princeton University. Researchers discovered that quantum particles behave differently when they're being observed versus when they're not. But here's the fascinating part. It wasn't just the act of observation that mattered, but the quality of that observation. A peaceful, accepting state of observation created very different results from an agitated, resistant state. This is exactly what happens in your daily life. When you're fighting your thoughts, you're creating a field of resistance that affects everything around you. Haven't you noticed how on days when you're fighting your mental state, everything seems to go wrong? It's not just confirmation bias. You're literally affecting the quantum field of possibilities around you. But when you surrender, when you stop fighting and simply allow your thoughts to be, reality begins to respond differently. It's like the universe itself breathes a sigh of relief. Synchronicities start appearing. Solutions emerge naturally. Opportunities you couldn't see before suddenly become visible. This isn't magic. It's physics operating at the most fundamental level of reality. Consider the double-slit experiment in quantum physics. When scientists try to measure which slit a particle goes through, it behaves like a particle. When they stop trying to control and measure it, it behaves like a wave of possibilities. Your thoughts work the same way. The more you try to control and measure them, the more solid and particle-like they become. But when you surrender, they transform into waves of potential, capable of interference and transformation. This is where manifestation meets quantum mechanics. Every spiritual teacher who has talked about the law of attraction has been touching on this truth, but often missing the crucial element. It's not your thoughts that create your reality. It's your relationship with your thoughts. When you stop fighting them, you enter a state of quantum coherence where reality can begin to shift in seemingly miraculous ways. You're standing at the edge now. You can feel it, can't you? That space between your old way of fighting thoughts and this new understanding of surrender. It's both liberating and terrifying because it asks you to do something that goes against everything you've been taught, to let go of control. This is where many people pull back. They glimpse the freedom that comes with surrender, but the voice of fear whispers, "What if I lose myself? What if I can't handle what comes up? What if everything falls apart?" These fears aren't just thoughts. They're the last desperate attempts of the resistance pattern to maintain its hold on your reality. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface. As you begin to stop fighting your thoughts, years, perhaps decades, of suppressed energy starts to move. It's like a dam beginning to crack, and the prospect of all that water flowing freely can feel overwhelming. This is the edge of transformation, the moment where reality begins to dramatically bend. Think of a tightly wound spring that's been held in compression for years. As you release the pressure, there's a moment of uncertainty. Will it snap? Will it break? But what actually happens is something far more beautiful. It returns to its natural state, releasing the energy that was always meant to flow freely. The integration of this understanding isn't about reaching some perfect state of non-resistance. It's about developing a new relationship with the flow of life itself. When difficult thoughts arise, and they will, you don't need to immediately achieve perfect surrender. Instead, you simply notice your tendency to resist, and in that noticing, something profound begins to shift. Start with the smallest things. Notice how you tense against minor irritations. A traffic light turning red, a slow internet connection, a slight headache. These are your practice grounds. As you learn to surrender to these small moments, you build the capacity to remain open during life's bigger challenges. Watch for the signs of successful integration. You'll notice that time seems to flow differently. Problems that once felt overwhelming begin to solve themselves with surprising ease. Relationships transform because you're no longer projecting your inner warfare onto others. Reality itself seems to become more fluid, more responsive to your state of being, rather than your state of doing. But here's the most beautiful part. As reality begins to bend, as circumstances start flowing with unexpected grace, you realize something profound. This was never about controlling your thoughts. It was about freeing yourself from the illusion that you needed to control them in the first place. You are not your thoughts. You are not the one who fights them. You are the space in which all thoughts, all experiences, all of reality dances. And when you fully embrace this truth, when you completely stop fighting what arises in your awareness, you don't just change your experience of reality. You transform reality itself. This is your invitation. Not to perfect your mind, but to free it. Not to win the war against your thoughts, but to step out of the battlefield entirely. Because once you stop fighting your thoughts, once you fully surrender to what is, reality doesn't just bend. It transforms into something far more beautiful than your mind could have ever imagined through force. The power has always been there, waiting patiently for you to stop fighting, to stop resisting, to simply allow life to flow through you as it was always meant to. And in that allowing, in that deep surrender, you'll find what you've been seeking all along. Not control, but freedom. Not resistance, but peace. Not the illusion of power, but true power itself. Are you ready to let go? Are you ready to discover what happens when you finally stop fighting and allow reality to bend in ways your struggling mind could never have imagined? Before you close this video, I want you to try something with me. Take a deep breath and bring to mind a thought that's been troubling you lately. It could be a worry about the future, a regret from the past, or an anxiety about the present. Now, instead of doing what you've always done, trying to push it away, fight it, or change it, simply let it be there. Create space around it, like you're stepping back to observe a painting on a wall. Notice what happens in this moment of allowing. Notice how the thought begins to lose its grip when you stop wrestling with it. This simple shift, this gentle surrender, is the beginning of your journey into reality-bending consciousness. And this is just the first glimpse of what's possible. The universe operates on principles far more magnificent than our fighting minds can comprehend. Every spiritual master, every quantum physicist, every pioneer of consciousness has discovered the same truth. Reality is more like a dance than a battle. And when you stop fighting your thoughts, you become an active participant in this cosmic dance, rather than a warrior stuck on an endless battlefield. Remember, this isn't about reaching some perfect state of enlightenment. It's about gradually shifting your relationship with your own consciousness. Each time you catch yourself fighting with your thoughts and choose to surrender instead, you're literally reshaping the quantum field of possibilities around you. Your transformation has already begun. The very fact that you're here listening to these words means that something within you is ready to stop fighting and start flowing. Trust that readiness. Trust the wisdom that drew you to this understanding. Because once you truly embrace this shift, once you fully step into this new way of being, reality will respond in ways that will leave you in awe. If you found value in this exploration of consciousness and reality, consider subscribing to this channel for more insights into the quantum nature of existence and the art of conscious living. Share this video with someone who might be stuck in their own mental battlefield. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another is the permission to stop fighting. And remember, the power to bend reality has always been within you. It was never about fighting harder or controlling more skillfully. It was always about surrendering into the flow of existence itself. Your thoughts are not your enemies. They're waves in the infinite ocean of consciousness that you truly are. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of reality itself. Until next time, keep allowing, keep surrendering, and watch in wonder as reality bends to reflect the peace you've discovered within.